DreAllDay.com.
Dre Baldwin, DreAllDay.com. I want to talk about Mr. Kevin Samuels, who recently, if you know who he is, you're watching this video, means you probably do. You probably have an idea who he is, well, who he was. He just recently passed away. He was in his mid to late 50s. And Kevin Samuels was a guy who had started to blow up on YouTube. He had been around for a long time, but he started to blow up on YouTube through these videos that he was making where he was talking to people about dating. For the most part, he was talking to people of color, black people mostly, about dating. And from what I understand, and I heard him say this in his own material, that back in the day, before he really got known, a lot of his material was directed towards men. He had been working with men and basically working with them on their image. His whole thing, he used to say, I'm an image consultant, helping men with the way that they show up and the way that they're presenting themselves in the world so that they can meet the kind of women that they wanted to meet. And then he pivoted at some point to start talking to women about their dating needs. And that's when I first heard of him, because that's when he started to blow up. More people started talking about him. I wasn't looking for dating advice, but I watched a couple of his videos and I just found them entertaining, even though I wasn't looking for informational purposes, but for entertainment purposes. They were very interesting to watch, these conversations that he was having. And then he recently passed away. And those of you who are on social, especially those of y'all who are following him even more than I was and following more closely than I was, that there was a lot of conversation around his passing, because you had like half the audience saying, man, Kevin Samuels was giving people good game. It's too bad that he passed away because he was helping people out. And then you had the other half of the audience saying, well, good riddance to him because he was tearing down black women and being negative towards mostly black women. This is the whole narrative thing these days. You say anything about a black female, or if it's perceived you say anything negative about a black female, then people want to tar and feather you and kill you and discredit everything that you've ever accomplished. So that was the situation with Kevin Samuels. So we know that's Go Puff out here giving out free stuff. Might as well give me some free Go Puff stuff. But anyway, that's been the whole narrative around Kevin Samuels and his passing. And the thing is this, here's what I want to say about Kevin Samuels. I'm going to put it all here in this video. First of all, when it comes to Kevin Samuels' approach and what he was talking about, a lot of the way that he talked about things, even though we were talking about different topics, a lot of the way that he talked about things reminded me of myself, in that he is getting straight to the point. He's talking about logical, reasonable outcomes of people's situations, and then saying to them, well, look, here are the actions that you're taking and here are the results of those actions. Let's figure out how we can change the actions so you can get a different outcome, instead of, and this is what I was finding in a lot of conversations that I listen to Kevin Samuels have. And again, some of you consumed a lot more of his material than I did, but I consumed enough of it to get a pretty good feel to just to this guy's approach, that a lot of the times he'd be talking to these women and they had these ideas that clearly are not leading to the outcomes that they wanted. And he would basically hold a mirror up to these women and let them know, look, here's what you're doing. Here's the outcomes that your actions are producing. How about you do something different? Or at least he would start with, first of all, let's get clear on what outcomes you're getting. And then if you want something different, then you probably need to stop doing what you're doing when it comes to the way that you're thinking. And that is, you could call that coaching. You could call it tough love. You could call it being very direct. You call it whatever you want to call it, but this is what allows people to see what their situation is. People got to be able to look at their situation objectively and as it is, so that the situation can be altered. You can't change the situation until you look at it as it is. That's what Kevin Samuels was doing. And here's the part, I want to make sure I talk about this here, because a lot of people, clearly, even if he hadn't passed away, people already had this opinion about him, that they're like, well, he's tearing down black women because he has these videos, the ones that went viral, the clips of, all right, this woman is saying she believes she's this and she believes she's worth that. And he's saying to her, well, look, you're overweight, you're old, you got kids, you're not making this much money. Why do you think you can get a man that's making X amount when you never even made half that? Why would a man who's making that kind of money want to build a lifestyle supporting a woman like you, who looks like you, who isn't feminine, friendly, and fit? The things that he would say. Why would a man want to build his situation around a woman like you. And these were logical questions. Now, the way that he said it, yeah, you could take it as harsh. You could take it as direct. You could take it as very, some of you might even call it toxic masculine, the way that he was putting that stuff out there. And that's a matter of opinion. It's a relative term. But yeah, you can look at it like that. But at the same time, let's be clear. Was he telling these people, was he necessarily telling them a lie? No, nobody said Kevin Samuels was lying in any of the things that he said. The biggest challenge that people had with the stuff that he was doing was how he was saying things. It wasn't what he was saying, it was how he was saying it. And the challenge for many people in the world today, this is not new, but it's just more prevalent because now we're all on the internet and everybody can express their opinion. Both the people who do it for a living and the people who are on the receiving end, everybody can give their opinion. The biggest challenge with Kevin Samuels these days is that people just don't like to be told the truth so directly. It's not the fact that, first of all, there are many people out there who are very, what's the word? They have an aversion to truth. I did a whole episode of my podcast about this called The Relentless Attack on Truth. It was episode 2175. People don't want to be told truth these days. People would rather have a lie that makes them feel good than a truth that's going to help them do good. That's absolutely a fact. That is not new. It's just become more prevalent because more and more stuff has been, you can basically mass push a message on people these days, whereas 10 years ago you had to go one by one to get people to accept a lie and feel good about it. Nowadays you could do it, you could give it that same message to 1 million people all at the same time. That's the only thing that's changed with social media and the internet. And Kevin Samuels was just a representative of that. He didn't create it. He was not the only one, but he was just a representative of that. But the thing is a few things about this. Number one, nobody ever said Kevin Samuels was lying. Also, the women that he was talking to and the things that he would point out to these women, I'm listening to what he's saying and I'm like, listen, logically, reasonably speaking, he's not actually saying anything wrong. Now, the things that he was saying because of what he was talking about and the nature of the subject, it is theoretical. It's not quote unquote facts. We can't say that it's facts. But if he says to a woman, let's say for example, some woman he's talking to, you're 42 and you got 2 kids and you make 50 grand a year and you're 30 pounds overweight, or those kind of he would have those kind of conversations with women, and he would say to her, look, you're saying you want to get married to a man who makes enough money that you don't have to work after you're married. He's going to take care of your 2 kids that are not his, and he's going to need to be making $200,000-$300,000 a year, and he's going to marry you, who's 30 pounds overweight. Why would a man want to do that? That makes no sense. And then he would basically start smacking this woman around with the truth and with his theories of, first of all, a man who's making that kind of money wants a woman who's more in shape. He wants a trophy wife. You ain't no trophy. He doesn't want to be raising other men's kids. You got some other man's kids. All the things that he was saying, a logical, reasonable person, many of you could look at that and say, you know what, that's actually right. The challenge that many people had with Kevin Samuels was not what he said. It was just the way that he said it. That's the first thing. The second thing is this, because I watched enough of the guy's videos because I would start to think to myself, all right, when he first came, I remember when I first heard of him, I think I heard of him the way that many of you heard of him, which was the average at best video that kind of went viral. It was a little clip of him telling a woman she was average at best. I watched the whole thing, and I liked how he would do like the long streams. It'd be like a 2-3 hour thing. Mostly I would just listen to it. I wouldn't even look at the screen. But just he would break down his points, and then he would have the conversation. And I remember thinking to myself when I first saw that, and I saw people talking about Kevin Samuels, and I'm seeing the women getting upset, and the feminine men who I guess call themselves Captain Save 'em for women, they want to go trash Kevin Samuels so they can look like they're defending women. That's a whole thing for feminine dudes to do these days. Different conversation. First thing I thought to myself was, all right, if this guy is so bad, right, and all he's doing, quote unquote, is tearing down black women, and that's his whole MO, is just tear down black women, say negative stuff about black women because he hates black women or he hates himself or whatever. Y'all know what people say about anybody these days. If you don't like what they're saying, you come up with some ad hominem attack on them so you can feel better about yourself. This is what people do. I'm thinking to myself, and I'm still thinking this to myself to this very day, even though he's passed away, because he got a ton of material out there. Even though he's passed, he got a ton of material out there. I'm thinking to myself, if what he was doing was so bad, right, and all he's doing is tearing down black women, allegedly, if that's what his whole thing is, and he's so bad, why did women keep trying to get on his lives and keep trying to get on his Zooms and keep wanting to come onto his show and get feedback from him? Because I'm watching these videos and I'm like, all right, obviously people know who he is. They're watching this stuff. He's on Zoom, and you can see when he's on the Zoom, he got these people waiting to get in the room, and these women would sit there and just listen to him talk to the other women and wait for their chance to ask their question. Then they get on his IG, and everybody wants to get on live, and they say, I didn't think he was going to bring me on, and they get to ask their questions and all this stuff. If he's so bad, why were so many women trying to sign up to get on his IG and talk to him? Clearly, even those of you who disliked him and you got whatever gripe against his work, as you can see, there was a market for what he was doing. And this is one of the things that he talked about. We got to look at the outcomes and the results of what's happening, not just your opinion of what's happening. Those are two different things. I can have an opinion that I don't like the whatever basketball team, or I don't like whatever some local business is doing. But if there's a whole bunch of people who keep coming to the games and a whole bunch of people who keep buying from that business, my personal opinion of what that business is doing and who they are doesn't really matter, because we got to look at the outcomes. We got to look at the results, folks. And I tell y'all all the time, we are in a performance and a results-based business. And this is why when I first heard Kevin Samuels, even though my thing is not relationships, I don't really talk about that. I talk about personal and professional development. When I heard him talking and I heard some of the key phrases, when he talked about we're looking at outcomes, what is that? Results-based business. He just has a different way of saying it. He had frameworks for what he was doing. He would say the same stuff to people over and over and over again. And again, I didn't even have to watch that much of his content to hear it. He used the same stuff over. He would say to the women, you need to be feminine, you need to be in shape, you need to be friendly. You need to get out of your masculine energy. Don't be having your dick out. He would say that to some of the women. You're in this masculine frame, and it's like you're being combative. No man wants to deal with that kind of woman, especially a man who's making so much money and has such a status in the world that he can pick any woman he wants. Why would he pick a woman who's going to be combative? Well, he has no need to. He can pick whatever woman he wants. Why would he want you? Same thing I tell a basketball player, or if you're an okay player but you got a bad attitude, why does the coach need you? He doesn't. He can pick any player he wants. And the similarities were numerous. There were numerous similarities in that situation, and he found that vein that really drew a lot of attention, which was talking about dating. And again, those of you who want to trash his legacy, or you were trashing him even when he was still alive, let's look at the results. Look at the audience that he was drawing. If he was such a basher of black women, why did black women keep going to his show to get rated by him, or to talk to him, or to share their challenges with him, if he was such a bad guy? And the men out there, because here's what's crazy. It actually is not that crazy. When you're on YouTube, for example, you start watching somebody's videos, because I start watching his videos, I will start getting in my, the algorithm would start showing me more videos that were either his stuff or people similar to him. And here's what I start noticing when I'm looking at the feed, and I never watched anybody else's stuff, but I noticed that a lot of men, they started making videos basically copying off his framework and talking about, high value men, and women are delusional and stuff like that. They basically copy his whole style so they can basically draft a little bit off of the wave that he had created. He knew about that. He would even say it in some of his videos. So if what he was doing was so bad for the community, why did he have so many people come into his world? Why do all of you know who he is when I'm making this video right now? And why are so many men who claim to be defending black women by trashing Kevin Samuels, why so many of them felt the need to go copy his whole style and do the same thing that he's doing? Now that he's passed away, I guarantee you're going to see like 20 people pop up trying to do the exact same kind of content that Kevin Samuels was doing, now that there's a void in the marketplace. And clearly somebody needs to fill that void, because these women wanted to be smacked around by Kevin Samuels. And the thing that I'll say about him in just talking about his approach and the way that he did things is that he had a clear framework. He was consistent in the way that he said the things that he said. If he was bashing somebody, if anytime you thought he was bashing somebody, look at the person who he's bashing. They were accepting it. They were taking it. Many of those women were thanking him. And even if they didn't like something that he said, how many of those women hung up on him? Now, I saw him hang up on some women. I didn't see too many women hang up on him. They would stay in that conversation even as he bashed them, even as he pointed out to them, yo, you got 2 kids. Why would a man they ain't his kids. Why would he want to raise those kids? Yo, you're 40 years old talking about you want to get married to a man who's making $300,000 a year. Why would a man who's making $300,000 a year marry you when he could pick a 25-year-old who's in much better shape and she's fertile and she can have his kids? Why would he even want to do that? And none of them, very rarely did I see a woman say, I don't want to talk to you no more, Kevin. I don't like the way you're talking to me, and leave. Never. Let me not say never. I didn't see all his videos. But most of the time they stayed in the conversation. They wanted more of that. There is a market for that. And the point is, and this has nothing to do with that type of material, because I liked his stuff, but I ain't like I'll be running around watching those kind of videos. It's not really my thing. I looked at it because I heard of him, and I liked his approach, and I liked the professionalism of what he did. And when I say professionalism, let me be clear. Professionalism doesn't mean maybe what most of you think. Professionalism means you do the same things the same way every time. You're consistent, you have a framework, and you follow your MO, you stick to it, and you do it over and over again. He had an MO and a style and approach, and he stuck to it over and over and over again, and that's one of the main things that drew an audience to him, because people knew exactly what they were going to get. Whether you're watching, whether you're calling in, trying to get on there, whatever, it was consistent the way that he had his approach. So any of you, all you dudes out there who about to go try to copy his style, because he's dead now, so somebody got to go do it. All right, make sure you get consistent in your approach. And the other thing about him that I have to mention is that he had his information, he had his data in place. So he would give you percentages. This percentage of men are married. This percentage of divorces happen, and this percentage are filed by women. This percentage have kids. This percentage does this. He had his information there. He wasn't just spewing off the top of the head. He had a position, and he had a reason why he had his position that he could back up with actual facts and data. Then he would follow that up by giving his theories, his hypotheses, and his opinions. And he would back it up and explain to the woman, like, do you understand this? Do you see this? Does this make sense? And that worked. That clearly worked. And overall, when it just comes to him, I mean, of course, it's disappointing when anybody passes away before their time. Who knows why he passed away? I know that he had some health issues like way back before any of us heard of him. He talked about it. But the fact that anybody will come out and try to bash his name after he passed and saying, well, you bashed women while you were alive, so I don't feel bad about you dying. Like, that's crazy. Like, y'all, I get it, it's the internet, and the internet is the internet, but come on, some of y'all need to go to church, man. I don't even claim a religion, but some of y'all need to go somewhere. You go to a church, go to the synagogue, go to the hall, wherever you need to go somewhere. Go watch some church on YouTube. But some of y'all really you got to be careful the kind of energy that you put out into the world and the things that you're saying. Because clearly, again, if you thought Kevin Samuels was wrong for the things that he was doing, well, what do they say? He without sin shall cast the first stone. So if you thought he was wrong, you bashing him doesn't make it right. And it doesn't make you any more righteous, because you are not qualified to judge another person. Secondly, if he was so terrible, again, why did he have such an audience? His audience wasn't just a bunch of people watching it for schadenfreude purposes like me. I was watching it and laughing because it was entertaining. But there was a bunch of women watching it, waiting for their chance to get on and get smacked around by him with the truth and the facts that he was going to give them. They were looking for that. So if he was so bad, why did he have such an audience? And a lot of his audience were women. It wasn't just men watching and laughing. It was women in there wanting to get the same treatment that he was giving to those other women, that he was such a basher. Why are these women still getting in line to get it? Is it because a bunch of women got low self-esteem and they just wanted to get beat up? No, because they knew he was giving them the facts and the truth and the objectivity that they weren't getting anywhere else. So the rest of the world is trying to tell you, you're 30 pounds overweight, you got 2 kids, you're 40 years old, you can have any man that you want, you can have it all, have anything that you want. Objectively, is that possible? Yes. But is it probable? Probably not. Again, well, how many people are actually getting it? And these are the things that he was saying in his videos. It's just like a basketball player who's 21. They ain't played basketball since high school, never played on a high school team, but they're like, well, is it possible I can make it to the NBA? And I say to them, well, look, you're probably not going to make it to the NBA, but if you want to play basketball, play. Am I a negative guy? Am I bashing basketball players by telling somebody that? Objectively, what's the chances they're actually going to do it? They're probably not going to do it. And the fact that he was doing on a subject that's such hot button these days, because the world has shifted its way into, you say anything negative about a female, especially a female of a POC female, a person of color, especially a black woman, then everybody will just come coming at you with their tiki torches like you're some terrible person. And this is hurting people. It's hurting people in the big picture, because the people who are allegedly being defended, and this is the same thing with black people, period, from the summer of social justice, the people who are being defended, nobody's holding you accountable. And if nobody's holding you accountable for anything, then you're going to eventually be conditioned. If you are susceptible to it, you're susceptible to people telling you you don't need to be held accountable for anything. Eventually, you're going to condition yourself into thinking that your shit doesn't stink, and everything that you do has to be accepted, and every idea that you have has to be right, and every view and vision and dream that you have is absolutely going to come true. And the only time you're going to find out is when it's too late, when none of those things happen, and you're like, damn, why didn't anybody tell me the truth earlier? Well, Kevin Samuels was that person. And he ain't the only one, but we're just talking about him here in this video. And that's what he was bringing to the table. So that's why when I first saw his material, I liked his approach, because again, it reminded me a lot of the approach that I have on a different subject, but his approach reminded me of my approach. And that approach works because people need to be told what's true, not just stuff that makes you feel good. And that's why his brand was doing what it was doing, even up to the point of his death. Again, let's look at the results of what he was doing. Not your opinion, not my opinion. Let's look at the results of what was happening. And it's clear and it's obvious. You can't argue with that. So with all that said, rest in peace to Mr. Samuels. I probably watched maybe 30, 40 of his videos, or at least listen to them. I'm going to watch more because it was entertaining. I liked the approach. And again, not everybody, but a lot of people were into the stuff that he was doing, and there's a reason for that. And you can't argue with outcomes. You can't argue with results. Not in this world. Not in the results-based business. Now, in the make-believe preschool world of you just want to go off your opinions regardless of what the facts are telling you, you can believe whatever you want. It's not going to lead to good outcomes for you, but it is your choice. But with all that said, I think that's all I got to say. That's that. Y'all tell me what y'all think. Work on your game. Dre, all.